afternoon. Good to see you all here. I'm Jeremy Myers. I am the Christensen Professor of Religion and Vocation and Executive Director of the Christensen Center for Vocation. And yes, this has been a lovely collaborative with campus ministry for years now. Quickly, I just want to thank the speakers we've had. This is our last speaker for the semester. So briefly, I just want to thank Eve Christensen, who's no longer here at Augsburg, but was our first speaker this semester, Amy Cooper, Yaqub Al-Jafri, and Vanessa Marr today were our speakers this semester, and we will have more next semester. But today we get to welcome Vanessa and learn from your wisdom today. Vanessa's an embodied educator dedicated to collective care through expressive arts as a path towards healing. She currently serves as assistant professor of social work here at Augsburg, where she teaches anti-oppressive approaches to clinical practice and environmental justice. Her research interests include eco-spirituality and Black, feminist, womanist approaches to experiential learning. Her teaching is fueled by radical joy and creative connection. Vanessa also is the founder of Mosaic Mindfulness, a liberation-centered practice that combines somatic, psychotherapy, and culturally attuned wellness. Vanessa also identifies as a trauma survivor turned thriver herself. Vanessa believes that anything in life that is regarded as broken can possess the power to hold wonder and beauty. Vanessa will also be hosting Mindful Monday, which happens here every week in chapel this coming Monday. So if you will really like what Vanessa has to say, and you can join her again on Monday in chapel as well. So please, let's give a warm welcome to Vanessa Marr.
Make sure I have my water. Collective Black self-recovery takes place when we begin to renew our relationship to the earth, when we remember the way of our ancestors. When the earth is sacred to us, we can also be sacred to our bodies. I drew upon the words of Sister Prophet Bell Hooks as I stand before all of you on this chilly Minnesota afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. And I acknowledge the presence of my ancestors, including my parents, who are also here, and it is upon their shoulders that I stand. I learned to love the sacred power of the natural world at an early age while growing up on the east side of Saginaw, Michigan, an automotive manufacturing town about 100 miles north of Detroit. Nature was my first classroom, as well as my safe haven. It was a bridge between the suffering racked by years of unspeakable abuse and countless days filled with joy and wonder. When I was 5 or 6, I believed I was granted the power to talk to animals. Chatty squirrels especially kept me company whenever I needed to stay outside and take cover. Cottonwood trees created magic snowflakes coaxed by summer breezes. Crab apples and clover nectar became secret treats, as food stamps for a family of 8 only went so far. Watching my mom make a way out of no way by growing a small garden in the back of our dilapidated garage was a magic all of its own. Biting into one of her fully ripened tomatoes was the ultimate treat for me. I learned the importance of divine timing whenever I witnessed the miracle of seeds transforming into sprouts, then onward into the most succulent manna from heaven. Over the years and miles away from that garage garden, there were many lessons I learned while being nurtured and nourished by Mama Nature. But 2 touchstones stand out most as they relate to my journey towards thriving and arriving at my calling as a teacher and healer. The first touchstone involved learning the value of getting lost as a path towards purpose. Similar to my walks through unmarked wooded areas, Not knowing exactly where I'm supposed to end up has always led to journeys I couldn't have imagined. In high school, for example, I was feeling increasingly depressed and anxious, though I didn't know how to name those internal experiences and traumatic responses at the time. My attendance became increasingly spotty. With the exception of art, this former straight-A student failed every single class during her senior year and barely graduated on time. Without any access to financial aid of any kind, the path to college met an immediate dead end. However, a different path opened in its place. The local vocational education center offered free classes in my area of interest, media technology. Writing and producing content gave me the creative outlet I needed. It also gave me a space to let my voice be heard. 5 years later, I finally became eligible for a Pell Grant and enrolled in my first college classes. And from there, many more paths opened. As an English undergrad and journalism intern, I had opportunities to interview Martin Luther King III and Bobby Seale of the Black Panther Party. Activist seeds continued to bloom when I later pursued my first master's degree in American culture, during which I embraced both my Black and queer identity and became more involved in community organizing to help amplify marginalized voices that had long been held silent. This ever-winding path led me to Detroit for a PhD in communication, as well as a deepening interest in community-centered teaching and urban agriculture. Sunday mornings were spent at D-Town Farm, a 7-acre oasis owned by the Detroit Black Community Food Sovereignty Network. Tucked between the concrete still and bustle of the city, the space became a sanctuary and organic classroom. It brought me back to the magic and wonder of nature I experienced as a child and the culturally attuned connections I was seeking as an adult. With hands deep in the soil and each shovelful of compost, I communed not only with creation, but also with those who cared for the land generations before. More than research, the act of gardening was a homecoming for me. Detroit was also where I had the honor of meeting and learning from visionary Grace Lee Boggs, who would invite activists of all ages into her home to practice, in her words, the revolutionary act of growing our souls. A force of nature herself, she often shared about the importance of putting the neighbor back into the hood, as well as reimagining a world beyond capitalist systems and empires stripped of humanity. Just need a moment. She passed away at the age of 100 on my birthday, so that was 10 years ago. So her spirit is also here. By taking the long way, dear ones, I found my path. My revolutionary act of choice was creating classrooms as nature intended, lively spaces to nourish and nurture organically, teaching outdoors, cooking meals in class, and encouraging students to engage in their own radical imaginations by integrating artistic voices into their work are practices I still uphold today. The second touchstone is inspired by the African proverb, "If the roots are deep, there is no need to fear the wind." There is resilience and resistance even amidst chaos and uncertainty. I have taken these ancestral words to heart now more than ever, as everyone and everything I know and love is experiencing great turbulence from multiple fronts. Answering the call to clinical social work and healing justice has been another purposeful path forward to mend mind, body, and spirit in transformative ways. The unresolved traumas that were showing up in my body demanded attention, and observing the suffering of friends, family, and communities demanded action against the winds of oppression and systems that were not designed to include them. I was drawn to contemplative practice 10 years ago to prioritize both my own care and the care for those most desperately in need. When I engage in walking meditations, I often place my hand on the biggest, baddest tree I can find, and I ask for wisdom and calm from the storms raging within and around me. Mama Nature has long served as loving witness to creation's trials and tribulations. Who better to ask for guidance concerning matters of survival? As a woman of African ascent, I am reminded that those who survived the brutality of chattel slavery in this country danced under the light of moons while also charting the stars to map out their freedom. They tilled the soil with bloody backs while also plotting new paths towards new lives. They did not ask for permission or compare themselves to others to do the right thing. They moved as the Spirit moved them towards something far better than they could fathom. They had no need to fear the wind because they were rooted in liberation and the faith in a world without tyranny. For you see, my ancestors did not know exactly where they were going, but believed in the directions they were taking. So too am I more grounded in this prospect today, and I hope the same for all of you. Students occasionally ask me about the state of the social work profession and what could a future in it look like for them. My answer is usually the same. This is a unique time in our history. What would your path look like if you can do anything, grow anything from the ground up? I invite them to co-create the changes they seek with every lesson. What would it look like if students were rewarded for asking for help and prioritizing their own care instead of having points deducted for late assignments? What if creative and collaborative learning could be emphasized rather than pathological competition and illusions of academic rigor? What would it look like if we could take our classrooms outside as the weather and our bodies allow? What if we added practices of creating sanctuaries of care and adding those to the grade book? The possibilities are endless. Since joining Augsburg last fall, I have been drawn to the gardens and the natural spaces that surprise me daily. Students know that I will stop that lecture dead cold if I spot a bald eagle flying outside the classroom window. And then I invite them to go and look too. A week after I began my journey here, we endured the loss of our own biggest and baddest tree, deemed the loveliest of them. A campus memorial was scheduled, and I made a point to attend. My supportive partner and now wife was a bit puzzled at these plans. "You said we're going to a funeral for a tree." And that's exactly how they said it. But as a child raised in nature and sheltered by the branches of many trees, I understood the assignment, saying goodbye and expressing deep gratitude to an elder member of this community. It should come as no surprise that a bald eagle, flying overhead, also saw fit to attend. My path, in closing, has been a wildly adventurous one. The lessons continue to aid in my healing. It's been 9 years, 2 months, and 27 days since my last panic attack. And new lessons are emerging as my body learns to embrace physical shifts, including diabetes, intensifying nerve pain, and changes to vision. The walks in the woods have become slower and shorter. However, Mama Nature is more welcoming and present than ever. Along the way, I found safety. I found joy. I found my voice. I found love. I found community. I found purpose. I found peace. I found you. And most humbly, I found me. Thank you.